Hello and welcome to Lockdown Dads. My name's Ian Dinwiddy. I'm a coach, a speaker, and the founder of Inspiring Dads. I'm also the father of two children. I've got a 10-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old son.
And I'm James Miller, editor of workingdads.co.uk, author of Dads Don't Babysit, and father of two different children, a daughter who is 12 and a son who is 9. Each week, the plan is to bring you some interesting conversation all the way through this weird lockdown experience that we're living through. Interesting, provocative, most of all relevant to your lives as working dads, because we are both working dads. This week it's just me and Ian. Hopefully in weeks to come we will bring you some interesting guests of all sorts. We've got all sorts lined up. We'll wait and see who actually says yes. The invite's going out to Prince William. You never know. Hopefully we'll keep you company through this weird lockdown experience.
I think you're absolutely right, James. It is incredibly weird. And each week, what we're going to do is we're going to start with sort of checking in terms of things that, something that's really important to both of us, and that is an understanding of our mental health. And I think mental health means different things to different people, but I think we can all do a great service to our friends and our colleagues and the people we meet and ask genuinely, how are you? So, James, my question to you is, how are you today?
Yeah, it's a loaded question these days, isn't it? It's much more important than it used to be, I think. Or maybe it's just we're understanding how important it is. I'm all right today because the sun's out. You can't really strip out mental health and physical health. I did 10 press ups at Joe Wicks this morning. That was a record. I don't know if that's a
Was
good
it?
number. Really,
Is
no
that your
idea.
P? Is that your personal best?
Yeah, I don't know if
Yeah.
that's impressive or not, but Joe Wicks keeps telling me I'm going to feel amazing after I've done it.
You're going to
Uh,
come out with a very different accent. I think that's the important thing to remember.
Yeah, I wasn't sure I felt amazing, but I did feel good doing the 10 press ups. But maybe you'll tell me that's really pathetic. So I don't
Uh,
know. So that was good. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. Getting out of bed, doing the PE every morning. I don't like it, but it gets you out of bed, gets the day going. I don't know if you agree, but I think this has been quite a hard week because, in my view, the weather changed. We've had
mm,
basically wall-to-wall sunshine since lockdown began, and
true,
then it went
true.
rubbish this week, and it just
Yeah.
felt like a really hard day. I can't remember if it was Tuesday or Wednesday. Everyone just felt grotty.
Yeah.
Sun's out a bit better, so it's everybody's feeling a bit better now. It's the end of the week. Even in lockdown, somehow the weekend seems like a good thing, even though every day's basically the same.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it feels like a harder week because we've had a couple of weeks since the Easter holidays.
Mm.
We were hoping there might be some sort of end to lockdown, but it's clearly not going to come. I suspect 1st of June we might still be sitting here. So it's felt like a hard week, this one.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. I mean, we've had a massive amount of hail this afternoon down here, absolutely chucking it down. And I know what you mean about that sense of maybe being cooped up a little bit. I think, I mean, for me personally, if I was to give it a kind of how am I on a scale of 1 to 10, it's probably around about a 7. And I think part of that is kind of, to a large extent, how my wife feels about this. And
Mm.
she's working a regular job, as it were, with regular hours, and in that sense, apart from where she works, things haven't really changed at all. However, the role that she does within, she's a senior lawyer within her business, and the role she does is very much they're looking at the future plans, and that sense of uncertainty about when the economy can start functioning in a way that's going to make sense, and what the long-term implications are for the business she works in and the medium-term implications. That's certainly playing on her mind a lot. And I think for all the sort of great things that I've been involved in this week and really enjoyed it, and mostly homeschool's gone quite well, there's still that nagging sense of, actually, yeah, it's a Friday, let's celebrate the Friday. But like you say, every day is pretty similar. We don't have those things to look forward to in the same way. I think recognizing that it's okay to kind of feel a little bit down and to recognize those kind of, I think, those ups and downs, I think it's a powerful way of not beating ourselves up too much, and recognizing the kind of weirdness and the and
Mm.
slightly depressing nature of it, and saying this is how it is, but there are, and looking for those positives.
Yeah, I think that's an important point you make, actually, about, it being about also how your wife feels. We all, you and I are both four people cooped up in a house, and if one of you is feeling slightly different, and that inevitably has an effect on how everybody else feels. But as you say, that's okay. Everyone's going to have good days and bad days. But whereas previously, you might wake up and you might be in a bad mood. Well, the kids will go out to school, partner will go out to work. In my case, I'll be working from home. I'll be fine. I could sit and stew in a bad mood all day. Now, if I wake up in a bad mood, everyone's going to feel it to some extent. So you have to be aware of that. But again, as you say, don't beat yourself up about it. But be aware, I think, is the answer, isn't it? Is to try and be aware of this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. You can't escape it, and some of those sort of traditional ways in which men, and we're talking about, lockdown dads is a theme of this. We weren't going to call it a show. I'm still tempted to call it a show, but the show. I'm going to go in inverted commas of the lockdown show, because if you're watching this or listening to it,
it's a show.
It's a show now. It's a show now. Now we've started doing it, it's definitely a show. But I think it's one of those things. Those things that dads experience, and maybe some of the ability to get away from things, and they don't exist anymore. Those getting out of the house and maybe going fishing, if that's your thing, or you go to the football on Saturday afternoon, whatever it might be. It's much harder to engineer, and I think for men, it's useful to think really carefully about how you can make those connections and how you can manage your own well-being in many ways, and really think deeply about how to make it work, so that grumpy daddy can't really escape to the, I guess he can go to the shed, but grumpy daddy is we do need to be a little bit aware of the fact that the impact it has on the people around us, and try our best to minimize anything that's negative, I guess.
Yeah, and in reverse as well. My son was a bit grumpy one day this week, and again, that when there's only four of you, it affects it, and you've got to just step back and say, okay, everyone's gonna have good days and bad days. I can't do anything to make it better, particularly right now. So just deal with it, and move on if you can. To offset any of us can move on at the moment.
Definitely. But I mean, I must admit, I said it was a 7 on the scale. I'm going to push that to a 7.5, James, if it's okay. Because
we're allowed half points, are we?
I'm going to put a half point on, because I did 22 press ups. I did 22 press ups to Joe Wicks in my 30 seconds this morning. No. So I reckon that's worth a half point for me. Maybe you can give me a half point, and we'll try.
Yeah, I was feeling like a 7.5, but now I'm a 5.
It's a win. I'd like to think it's a win-win, but
it's clearly not, is it? Because I only did 10.
Anyway, on that downer,
let's not fall out a few minutes into the first show.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Do we? Let's make it a show. Let's make that a thing. We're going to do some features. We're going to talk about stuff. Ideally, every week, cover off the same sort of things, and hope to have guests on and talk to them about this stuff. The first feature is called "When I'm 64," but obviously we can't afford the music. I don't even know if we're allowed to sing it. Is that allowed?
It's a good question. I'm not sure. My daughter's school, they did a video montage of for sort of NHS, and they used some music in the background, and there was some Coldplay music, but it was actually being sung by someone else. And so, well, I don't know how. And it's like, are they allowed to do that? I thought, no idea. But I'm not saying which school my children go to, just in case.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know a man who used to make podcasts and used some very famous music in it. Oh. And then I think, how are you allowed to do that? He said, well, I just assume they're not going to find me. Because we should explain why it's called When I'm 64. Because we were talking about how people are going to remember this period in the first instance, how our kids are going to look back and remember this, and I suppose to some extent what we can do to make it a happier memory or whatever. Because it's weird for us. It must be weird for the kids. I don't know. What do you think? What are you going to remember when you are 64?
When I'm 64? Well, I like to think I'll remember where I am. That would be a first kind of positive, I think. But what's that? That's in 20 or so years, isn't it, for us? I think I think it very much depends on the family setup and the family circumstances, and there are so many different experiences within what we're calling, for the purpose of the show, we're calling lockdown. And I think if you've got if you're a child and you've got two parents who are both trying to work full time and working the same hours, or feeling like they need to work the same hours as they always have done, then that's going to be a very different experience in terms of screen time and sort
Mm.
of parental sort of presence than
Mm.
if you've got if you've got a role where maybe a parent is furloughed or wasn't working in the first place. And there are different challenges, both for the kids, and different experiences for the kids based on, I think, how the family structure is. I was listening to something. Well, I was involved in a webinar yesterday, and one of the observations from a piece of research sort of done internally within, I think it was IBM, and what they were finding is that their younger single colleagues were the ones who were struggling the most with this situation because they were
Mm.
on their own. So it will very much depend. The memories and the type of memories that I
Mm.
think our kids have and that we have, I think, will depend on what the circumstances are. I like to think it's all, paddling pools in the garden, but it really, there's so many variabilities in terms of income, quite frankly, and
Mm.
what type of house you're lucky enough to be able to afford to live in.
I think we'll remember all this. That's what I think we'll remember, is
This
all
show.
this. Just all this. I think that'll be what we'll call it.
Mm,
You know how in like films and books you have like, there's like the great darkness happens, or the singularity, if you
winter.
like, or something like that. These
Winter is
amazing
coming.
names.
Yeah.
Yes, whatever,
Mm,
the Great Winter, or whatever you want to call it. And this
mm,
one we'll look back and just call it. Do you remember all this? Yeah, that's
yeah.
all anybody describes it as. They just sort of go, all this. I mean, we've done it, I think, already in this show. We've already
Yeah.
said, all this that we're living through. And I just wonder
Mm.
if in 20 years' time you'll go back. Do you remember the time before all this?
Yeah.
Just,
In the
I don't
same
know.
way that maybe London 2012 kind of encapsulates something over and above the Olympics, a kind of feeling of, almost this nostalgic view of this was when Britain got everything together and everyone came to the world in a really positive kind of all-encompassing idea. Whereas
Yeah.
maybe 2020 is slightly different.
It'd just be called all this forever. It'll be known as, whenever anybody refers to all this, they'll be talking about 2020.
I think maybe that's the thing. We have to come up with maybe we can come up with a phrase. I'm not saying all this isn't great.
All this. Cafe,
All this.
all this. That's all it'll be known
So,
as.
for you, James, what do you think? In terms of when you're 64, which I think is slightly closer away. Slightly sooner for you than it is for me, if I remember rightly, but
Yeah,
only
Mark.
by a little bit.
At the moment, I'm not going. I'm not going to quibble over those small margins, frankly. Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've sort of said that I think we'll remember is queuing. I think the kids will remember queuing because
Mm,
that's the thing that everybody shares. Like you say, there's so many variables in your experience of this, to some extent, all this to some extent, and yet everyone's queuing. Everyone's queuing. Everyone's going to be queuing for the rest of the year for whatever,
mm.
wherever shop they go to, whenever. I just think, in 20 years' time, the kids will go back. God, do you remember the queue? Do you remember when we had to queue to go to the supermarket? Or to go to any shop or whatever. It's those sort of, what are the things that
Because you latch
will
on
be
to all
a
sorts of strange things, don't you, when you're a child, and as you're growing up, you remember often the mundane, not the sort of main
yeah,
thing. Yeah.
yeah. And the flip side to this whole, when I'm 64 is when I'm 44, which again is very soon for me. But I think it's worth pondering, not just what we'll look back on in 20 years' time, but I suppose what happens immediately on the other side of all this.
Mm,
And that might also determine what we end up looking back on in 20 years' time. You may or may not be better placed to ponder this one than me, because obviously you're talking to dads and working dads. I
yeah.
mean, you're talking about working dads. There's a lot of talk about what the post-COVID world is going to look like, especially the post-COVID work world.
Yeah.
I don't know, for working dads, how do you see it changing?
I mean, I think I know we both share the same opinion that we hope it's the start of some kind of big sort of groundswell in terms of flexible working for everyone, in particular men having the opportunity, if they choose, to access different working patterns. But I think it's far from certain that that's the way it will go. However, there are some, from my experience, there are some really positive signs that's how men are looking at things. So a couple of examples. So I was working with a client last week, and he's been furloughed on 80% pay. And he could kind of see it coming. He's the type of industry where things were shutting down. It's related to the construction industry in a sort of roundabout way. And he could see things shutting down. He could see the work starting to dry up. And so he knew it was going to happen. And his view, and I was only to be fair, I was only speaking to him after a week of furlough, so that may change. But he was treating this as well-paid paternity leave, and he was reconnecting with his son. His son is, if I get it right, his son's about 4 or 5 months old. No, he must be. He's older than that. It must be a year. It must be a year or so. Trying to think when we started working together. Anyway, so his son's a year old, and anyway, he's now the lead. He's the lead parent, and he's embracing the opportunity to be there. His wife is a health visitor. She's still going out and doing her job on a part-time basis, and there is a pay cut involved, but some of our costs have come down. Travel, eating out, those kind of things have obviously reduced for a lot of people. So for a lot of people, and certainly the way he was looking at it, it's kind of balancing yourself out. But he was saying, actually, this is a great opportunity. And I said, well, what, how are you treating work in the future when we get back to normal, or coming out of this kind of all this? Let's use the phrase properly. When we come out of all this, then how's your perspective changed? He said, well, now I'm definitely going to be working from home 1 day a week. I definitely want to be there more than I am. And this was someone who already had become really good at leaving on time and sticking to that and being really efficient. And he's now taking that as a really big opportunity to structure his working life in a different way. Now, you could argue it's a little change, but I think it's an important change.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a few thoughts on this, but we've got a few episodes, hopefully, so I'll save most of them up. The one I was thinking about this week actually fits really well with what you just said there, which is this idea of a staggered day. It looks like the 9 to 5 is dead for now. Even if you want to work 9 to 5, you might have to work whatever 7 to 3 or 11 till 7 or whatever. Just for practical reasons, there's going to be a staggered day, and I just wonder how that will work, in the sense that that dad, he will be able to right, fine, he wants to work from home 1 day a week, he's also going to have the option to be around at breakfast, possibly got older kids, drop them at school or whatever, or be around in the evening, possibly pick up kids from school. Remember schools, if kids ever go back to school. Be around for whatever, homework in the evening, or the nights are getting lighter, to actually go to the park with your kids if they're that bit older, at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, whatever. I just wonder how that will play out, in that something like you're talking about, will have to decide, do I want to be around for the morning, or do I want to be around for the evening? And everyone's going to have to make that choice. I suspect, or I suppose it might be imposed by employers, depending on how it works. But I think that might be an interesting thing on the immediately coming out of all this, is that decision on mornings and evenings and when you want to be around, and the valuable time you're going to get then. Which I think both sides can be valuable. To some extent, it's not really going to matter which one you choose, but it's going to be something you're going to people are going to have to think about.
Yeah,
and that will possibly lead to more thoughts about flexible working and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't really have an answer to that one, but I think it's an issue that might be interesting. In hopefully sooner rather than 3 months, perhaps after school summer holidays, it might be really when that'll kick in. I don't know.
I think that sense of thinking about it is a thing that's kind of really coming to the fore. So this week I've been running a 5-day challenge, how to control your work-life balance challenge, and it's not really about work-life balance in the sense of how do you submit a flexible working request. It's about understanding what your values are. It's understanding about what you want to be, do, and have, and it's about the communication and with your partner and designing your ideal working week. And it's a really interesting time to have had that conversation, because for the guys in that group who are engaging with the content, they're really starting to reflect quite deeply about their circumstances, and they're seeing it as a quite not quite a line in the sand, but quite a moment that's going to make them reflect. Now, whether they'll be able to get what they really want at the end of it, I don't know, but they are taking the time to reflect on actually what is genuinely important. One of the guys in the group who had worked, he worked as freelance, he'd gone to full time, I think, because the work he was doing, the income wise, it wasn't consistent enough. And now he's saying, well, actually, for the first time, now I'm thinking about, well, actually, what I really want is to work full time 3 days a week if I can get that. And so people are starting to use, all this as an opportunity to reevaluate, I think, some of the things that are important, and kind of think about what the art of the possible. What is it genuinely? What do I want, and what could I get if I just maybe thought about it, asked, communicated with my partner, and said, "Actually, can we do something different longer term that's going to be more helpful for us as a family?"
Yeah, and it's about knowing yourself, isn't it? It's I suppose that's what that do I want to be around in the morning, I do want to be around in the evening, and to some extent, do I want to work part time, or do I want to work, flexibly from home, or however you want to work it? It's something that men perhaps haven't been particularly good at, and that's not because we're men, I would suggest, but because it's how we're raised, and that's nobody's fault. But this perhaps offers an opportunity to take a little step back and say, okay, who am I? What works best for me? Is it, am I a morning person or an evening person? Is the most fundamental one there. If I'm a morning person,
Yeah.
I want to be around for my kids in the morning, and I'll work in the evening. Or I suppose I'm a morning person. I want to get the work done in the morning because I'll be more productive, and then I can hang around with the kids in the evening. And yeah, I suppose there's a potential for this to be a sort of I don't want to say it's like stepping back, because it's really intense for a lot of people, this experience, and it's not a break where you get a chance to think about it.
Yeah.
And yet it's a chance to think about different things, perhaps, and that, even though it's intense. So yeah, I suppose that's the hope, isn't it? Actually, it's not necessarily about the practical stuff that might happen on the other side of this, but it's the start thinking about it and see where that leads.
Yeah.
But we'll explore this more in the weeks to come, and hopefully come up with some more answers between us and get some answers from others.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course, as I say, it is an intense experience, and one of the things we wanted to talk about while we're doing this is how to help make it less intense. Basically, tips to survive it, because we're acing this. Basically, we're watching this.
It feels like that every day.
It's amazing. Well, listen to us, because we know what we're doing. No, we don't, obviously. Like everybody else, we're muddling through. But we can all help each other, hopefully, if we share what we've learned. I mean, we are all learning. We are picking up tips along the way. What do you reckon, Ian? You got I don't want to say there's two sides. We could get into the argument about work-life balance and whether that's an acceptable term. There's a domestic element to this experience, and there's a professional element as well. So it might be false to split them down the middle. But I'm going to anyway.
Let's divide and conquer.
Yeah, do you have any professional tips or work or life tips?
Well, I think the one that I thought about, the one that I chose, was really around sort of communication in the domestic setting as much as anything. And I think some of the elements of the communication with your partner are also quite important to use with your colleagues in terms of expectation setting, kind of understanding what actually needs to be done and when, and working out where are the pressure points. What sometimes we talk about sort of having a structure. One of my top tips, I think there was something going around on Twitter earlier this week that we both got tagged on. I think mine were a couple of my tips were to do with having a structure and then not being a slave to the structure, which I appreciate. It's having your cake and eating it, but it's that sense of understanding what are the non-negotiables that need to happen in the family. Does breakfast need to be at the same time, and who supervises when you've got young children? Who supervises breakfast? And can we be clever with our time? But that's designing it as a family unit. Now, regardless of what that family unit looks like, easy for me to say. I think we need to be quite clever in terms of kind of earmarking the bits that need to happen at certain times, and even when they don't, let's try not to worry about it too much. So for me, for us, for my wife, she kind of starts work at 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, depending on calls, and works through till 7:30, and she's doing that sort of every day as she always has done. And so as a result, I get up early, grab my dressing gown, and I start work at 6. And so that's how it kind of works early in the morning. And then on Saturday and Sunday, and this is where it gets a bit weird. So Saturday and Sunday are my working days, because that's the time when I can get a clear run at work in a way that I can't generally, and 5 and 6 on a weekday afternoon, kids are watching TV and I do an hour then. But we're trying to divvy up our time to make sure we cover off the stuff that we can do. But try not to beat ourselves up. I think that's the thing for me, James.
But that's the communication thing, isn't it? I mean, key to that is that your partner knows I'm going to work Saturday, Sunday. So you're not feeling like you still need to be doing all the domestic stuff and trying to do work, and then you're like, I want to get on with this, and you need to be explicit with each other, and that shouldn't be a problem. If you are, in a marriage or similar arrangement, you should be able to be fairly straight with each other and have that conversation. And if you've been doing your bit during the week, then that shouldn't be a problem to trade it off for the weekend. And obviously, it's working for you.
Yeah, so I think that's a communication element. I mean, we're hoping to get a single dad involved in as one of our guests. I think that'll be an interesting thing to explore. Is if you've got sole responsibility for both working and looking after children, regardless of what age they are, how do you then negotiate that with your kids? How do you communicate with your kids and make it a shared effort? Really, I think. I mean, what's it like for you, James? What kind of, what's your? I guess the main thing is what your what your tip is really. So if mine's communication, which is kind of a bit more domestic, what have you got anything?
You've gone kind of professional. You're talking about working life. My tip is very domestic, and it's non-iron shirts. Get non-iron shirts. Non-iron shirts are amazing. And here's the tip that nobody ever told me: they are only non-iron if you put them on a hanger when they come out of the machine. Nobody told me this when I was an idiot young person buying non-iron shirts and then wearing them all. I still need to iron them. Why aren't they working? And then recently I discovered you got to put them on a hanger. Right? I mean, brilliant. You don't need to iron them, but actually that's quite important because you can save quite a lot of time. And if you can reduce the domestic load at this time, then that's quite good. Because if you're all living in the house, it's going to get mankier, untidier. There's more cooking to do, and consequently, there's more washing up because everyone's having 3 meals at home. Everyone's making washing, and they seem to be making more washing somehow. I mean, I'm not quite sure how because they're still presumably wearing the same amount of clothes yet. I'm sharing it because nobody ever told me that non-iron shirts only work if you put them on a hanger. But it is quite important that these little shortcuts that you can take to save yourself some domestic labour, I think, are quite important at the moment. And then you've got more time to do all the other stuff because let's face it, there's a shortage of stuff. But on that point, if anybody watching, listening has any tips, please share them. Either professional or domestic. I mean,
definitely.
Any of those, clean your windows with vinegar type tips, and that's fine. We'll take them, but please do share.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's. I mean, first and foremost, I'm amazed you're still wearing a shirt.
I meant to say, but I forgot
because I can't see one.
my Zoom shirt. I have one shirt I've been wearing every other, one of these sort of
podcast shirt. Yeah,
I forgot. I'm quite upset.
Like I said, I even changed. I changed my T-shirt because I could see this sort of mark of whatever whatever I had for lunch, possibly, or whatever my children had for lunch, possibly was splattered down my shoulder. So I think, yeah, exactly. We should dress up. Maybe bow tie. Bow tie.
It's
Ah,
William, then I'll put a bow tie on. All right.
that's true. Otherwise, it's a bit Joe Wicks. Friday, we're recording this on a Friday, and as massive fans of Joe Wicks, and we know that it's Fancy Dress Friday. Um, so perhaps there's something.
Fans might be a bit strong there, Ian.
You're just
no teasers, I don't know, followers, I don't know, disciples, I suppose. I don't know,
yes,
fans
could be. Yeah, I'm still trying for the. I'm still trying to get the shout out. My kids are like, "Can you put our names up so we get a shout out?" It's like, we're not going to get a shout out. That's the chance of that happening are so small.
Yeah,
So
mine
every
doesn't work
time.
either. Mine have tried claiming they're from Zimbabwe, Philippines.
That's the way to do it.
That hasn't worked either, to be honest. So, give it up.
So to wrap up, we've got two. I think we've got two great tips. Well, hopefully, and time will tell whether they're great tips.
But the
non-iron shirts.
So you got to come back next week for. He's going to be an even better tip next week.
Exactly, and we might even, if we're lucky enough, we might even be reading out other people's tips to make us look good.
Yeah, or we'll just steal them and pretend they're our ideas. I mean, that is.
Yeah, and we can say we can just line.
Yeah, we don't like that. We don't like that Joe Wicks who just ignores you. We'll give you a shout out if you get in touch. Guarantee.
Guarantee. Yeah, exactly. There's an ambition for you, and maybe we'll even play some music that we're not allowed to play, non-copyright music, copyrighted music. So my wife's a lawyer. It'll be fine. She can protect us.
Oh yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, all right. What she said.
So if anyone does have any ideas, want to get in touch with us, then obviously in the comments below whatever service you are watching this on or listening to this on. And the other thing is that you can go to my website, which is inspiringdads.co.uk, and I'm going to put a page there which will be called Lockdown Dads, and I'll put the links to all of the different shows, and then there'll be a button that you can click on that will then send an email saying my top tips or something like that, so you can get in touch with us directly using that format. And we look forward to all the things we have to read out. Otherwise, we have to make them up.
I'm at Political Yeti on Twitter. What's your social?
So I'm usually Ian Dinwiddy. So I think I own Ian Dinwiddy on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook as well. Although it's Inspiring Dads on Facebook is where it mostly happens. Yeah. So yeah, Political Yeti. Oh, wrong way. If I go off, point that way actually. Political Yeti. I'm pointing to you. That doesn't work.
On my screen.
We got them the wrong way around. Yeah, I'm probably mirrored. Yeah, I am. I'm mirrored. That doesn't work. So we've really enjoyed being here. Hopefully you've enjoyed watching and listening, and look forward to having you with us in the coming weeks as we discuss some of the challenges, some of the amusement, some of the absurdity about being a lockdown dad, and hopefully some ideas and some discussion about where we go in the future. So I just want to thank you all for watching or listening, and I think the thing is, give us a like. That's the important thing.
Yes,
I've watched a lot of YouTube. Yeah, subscribe, give us a like, send us your comments, and we look forward to hearing from you. And so thank you very much from James, and thank you very much from myself.
See you all next week.
See you later. Bye bye, everyone.